With Age of Mythology Retold just around the corner with this big reveal at the Xbox showcase, many people have been wondering, is Age of Mythology Retold going to be the killer of the Age of Empires 4? What's up, guys? It's FitzBro. I've been playing almost exclusively Age of Empires 4 since its launch several years ago. Obviously a big fan of the game and the franchise as a whole, but I'll tell you what, I am super excited about AoM Retold. I've got this footage playing in the background from the Xbox podcast. I did review this in its entirety. You can check it out in my previous upload on the channel. But I wanted to discuss this topic today because I did see people over on Reddit, on Age of Empires 4 or on the Age of Mythology channels talking about, what is going to happen with the Age of Empires community as this game comes up. I've even seen Beastie Cutie upload a video talking about whether or not he's going to be playing it or not. Of course, a big prominent pro player in the scene. And it does raise a lot of questions. And I think I'll just start with, what are my personal feelings? What games am I going to be playing when this comes up? Is this a game I'm going to move over to? And I think the answer really is going to be, this is the first RTS I ever played as a child. It's the first online game I ever played on dial-up. It has a special place in my heart, and I can't tell you how excited I am for it. Of course, I had this crazy excitement when Age of Empires 4 came out after years and years and years of no new Age of Empires titles. But there's just something different about this that just sparks the imagination and the nostalgia, and I am super stoked about this, probably even more so than I felt when Age of Empires 4 released itself. And I think it's going to be interesting to see when the game first launches, what is the quality of life? We've seen several different Age of Empires franchise games that have gotten their definitive edition updates, whether it's AoE2, AoE3, and of course AoE4's launch, have different, and even extended edition have different reception at launch, right? And largely this being due to just the stability of the game, and the presence or lack therefore of bugs, esports scene support. So let's talk about what's been going on with the Age of Empires 4. Kind of lately. We've of course got Red Bull Wolo coming up, and we know both AoE4 and AoM are going to be there in some kind of limited capacity, but it was a little bit of a strange year for Age of Empires 4. We just came off of a massive DLC last fall with the Sultan's Ascend, and they said it was the greatest selling, best-selling DLC of the Age of Empires franchise, and really expected a little more support for the game in this last year. Now, of course, with anything at Microsoft, stuff moves super, super slow. We don't know how far out they've really planned out a lot of their upcoming content, tournaments, etc. But it was really didn't feel good, even most recently with the Red Bull Wolo, basically kind of snubbing Age of Empires 4 from what it previously was at the first iteration. And this was very strange that essentially their flagship game is almost being reduced down to a show match at the biggest of esports events. And then we've also had this really awkward period lately where we haven't had a whole lot of new content for Age of Empires 4. Personally, I've found myself going back to explore other RTSs that I've loved and enjoyed, such as AoE3, Company of Heroes, Age of Mythology Extended Edition, and we also do have that combined with this crazy hype for AoM that is right around the corner. So what's that going to do with Age of Empires 4? I am, even if we're not getting a new DLC, we're not getting, new content per se. I've been really disappointed that there haven't been new balance patches, even minor ones. There haven't been new map rotations, and AoE4 has felt, quite frankly, very stale for me lately. And this has really been reflected. If you go and check out any of the recent Twitch streams, you can go check right now. And the number of viewers out there watching the game are just simply down. Now, I think there's still tons of players playing, especially, the Xbox launch came a year ago. I think that brought a new refreshed player base along with that DLC. But for me, as someone who's been playing this since day one, I'm a little bored with Age of Empires 4 right now. I need something to spice it up. And maybe that's on the horizon, and that'll be great and all, but I don't think it's coming anytime soon. and that really leaves a big opportunity here for Age of Mythology. I think there's a number of players who either did play this when they were a kid, have nostalgia such as what I've described, but there's also a large number of players who've never even played Age of Mythology before. I was talking to my friend Ozzy Drongo, and he never even played the first iteration of Age of Mythology, and this is going to be a brand new RTS to him. And for a lot of people, having that new RTS to dig into really can mean quite a bit. And I think we're going to see, when this game launches, and we're just end of August. We're just a few months out here. What the game is going to be like? Is it going to be bug ridden like we've seen when AoE4 launched? Is there going to be rapid patches? Will there be bug fixes? Will there be hot fixes? What type of support is there going to be for the game when it launches? Because I will tell you, just frankly, honestly, as excited as I am about Age of Mythology, I'm really, really nervous that we haven't seen a beta to get feedback from the community on this game in a public way and make iterations on that well ahead of the deadline. Because we know basically the first time we saw gameplay, they announced, hey, we're releasing it in a few weeks, in a few months, right? And that means the game's pretty much done where it is, however it is. And this is also the first time they've launched an Age title on both Xbox and the PC day one. And that is a massive undertaking. There's a ton of UI differences. Of course, as you can imagine, different teams are going to be working on the Xbox version, the PC version, those controls. And it only makes making iterations and bug fixes and all that stuff more complex, right? Because there's more variables when you've got two different versions of the game out there. And keeping those in sync sometimes can result in slower bug fixes and patch fixes. I don't know the resourcing they have here. I know Forgotten Empires has been the main production company on this, but if they've got to look at all the bugs to fix, that's going to be obviously, hopefully, a big priority. And if there's a bunch of Xbox bugs on top of some PC bugs, and players, they want bug fixes, but they also want balance changes, new content. Is that going to happen in a rapid succession? That's worth the wait and find out. Has the Age of Empires franchise learned anything from previous launches? What is the game going to look like day one? Is it going to have all the features that, as you see right now on screen, the original Age of Mythology had? Is it going to have a complete bug-free campaign? Is the scenario editor going to be there? Is there going to be support for custom games? Is online going to be stable? What are all those elements going to look like? Because that's what we've noticed when Age of Empires came out, Age of Empires 4, it was great, it was awesome, but there was a lot of base features of an RTS that was what's going on? Why is this missing? Why was Color Picker missing day one with AoE4? Why did we have to wait a year to get a scenario editor? A lot of things that's just really weird. I've got my CD for Age of Mythology here in my office, and you open that game up, you play it, it's got all those features. They've got a few quirks of curse, but largely it is a smooth experience, and that hasn't been the experience with recent Age of Empires titles. AoE3 had similar stuff at launch, with civs being unplayable. So that's the thing I'm going to be most curious about. I think that's going to be huge because they've talked again and again and again about how they want Age of Mythology to be a title that maybe brings somebody into the franchise, brings somebody into the strategy RTS genre for the very first time. And if you're going to do that, that needs to be a positive experience day one, because the people who maybe never played Age of Empires or an RTS that start playing Age of Mythology and they're face up against massive bugs or issues with online or just things that are just it feels like it's missing, that might be the only time they play it. I think back to when AoE4 launched, there were some of the, super mega big Twitch streamers and YouTube streamers or whatever playing Age of Empires 4 for the first time, and there was just so many issues with the game. They played it, they tried it, and that was it. For many of them, we never saw them again. Now, Age of Empires 4 has, had its attempts at, the Anniversary Edition, the relaunches, kind of the hypes, the DLCs, and I will say Age of Empires 4 is now in probably the best state it's ever been. A great game to play. Don't get me wrong, I know we talk about being a little bit bored, but that's just because we play it to death, and there really hasn't been any new content. But I think that's going to be important for when Age of Mythology launches. Will it be something that's going to hook and capture that new audience and returning audience, the other Age of Empires franchise players, day one. What's the UI? What's the game experience going to be like? If I'm coming from Age of Empires 4, are the hotkeys going to be similar to what I've played from AoE4? If I'm coming from AoE3, I'm coming from AoE2. Are there going to be different options for your layouts? Is there going to be stuff that's going to make that welcoming to players, whether they come from StarCraft or whatever it's going to be? I think it's going to be really important does that feel good to you day one? What's that first week, month going to look like? And we're going to have to wait and see. And I think that's largely going to answer the question about, is Age of Mythology going to be the AoE4 killer? Now, the other thing to consider is, what's the esports, or will there be an esports scene? I think we saw in an Adam Eisgreen interview a few months ago, them talking about how they want it to be an esports ready game. So, is it going to be up to the task? I know it's built in the same engine as AoE3, and man, if you played AoE3, I've loved that. That was the game I played before AoE4 very heavily. It was bug-ridden and had all kinds of pathing issues, had units getting stuck in trade posts, all this stuff. And have they figured that out? I would hope so. They've learned from their experience. I know they probably have similar people who worked on that game as well, working on Age of Mythology Retold. But that's going to impact players wanting to play, you say an esports game. My units need to path well. Stuff's going to have to look good. Stuff's going to have to run smooth. Frames going to have to be good. The network working is going to need to be good. I mean, in Age of Empires 4 scene, when we just talk about the competitive ladder and ranked, we still have no implementation to deal with the queue dodging that's been going on, and all kinds of stuff that's just made it really hard to do the competitive scene, not to mention the lack of community maps. I mean, I look at, I was just playing Company Heroes this week, and definitely not as popular for an RTS, but they have so many community maps in the ranked map pool that they've built in. Is that going to happen with the Age of Mythology? I remember playing tons of scenarios and community maps myself when I played Age of Mythology as a kid, and I would love to have this big variety. Look at this. Look how beautiful it looks. I'm loving the previews here of AOM. And I think we're just kind of have to wait and see. Now, of course, with pro players, as I was watching a video of Beastie Cutie posted up about Age of Mythology, and if he would be switching, prize pools obviously going to be a driving factor. I mean, at the end of the day, if you've got some of these pro players who, like, this is their bread and butter. They need to be making earnings from tournaments to pay their bills, right? Like, that's going to be it. So if there's $1 million Age of Mythology tournament and only 100,000 AoE4 tournament, I mean, what do you think they're going to do? Of course, they're going to go where the money goes. It talks, right? Let's be real about that. But I would imagine we'll see some initial tournaments, for the game, but will those continue? Like, I think of when AoE4 first came out, we had, of course, an EGC tournament. I would imagine EGC is going to host an Age of Mythology tournament. They always do. They follow the latest game. They did the same stuff with Stormgate, right? They're going to follow the trend. And will they continue that? I don't know. How are they going to split their, current AoE4 tournaments? Are those prize pools going to be as big if they're trying to support something like some AoM tournaments? And if AoM starts to become more popular, where will that priority go? Well, I will tell you, as somebody who has followed EGC TV since its inception, they originally covered Age of Empires 3. I bet many of the AoE4 community members don't even know that. EGC was originally exclusively AoE3 tournaments, and when AoE4 came out, they dropped AoE3 like that. There hasn't been an Age of Empires 3 funded tournament from EGC since, and will that happen with Age of Mythology? If AOM is the more popular game, will they continue to support AoE4? I do think that just from a player standpoint, like, AoE4 is a great game. Like, there's gonna be players that will continue to play it forever. It's a classic. It's earned its place in the franchise as a very successful game now at this point. I think it's done a good job down the line. But what I mentioned earlier is launch issues. Launch issues is what always have plagued this franchise. So there will be players that are just going to hold out. I mean, I also think a lot of Age of Empires players are stubborn. When you look at the communities of Age of Empires 2, Age of Empires 3, now we got Age of Empires 4, they love their game. They get a special connection with their game. And, many players, I predict, might play Age of Mythology and are going to instantly have some qualms with it. and go back to the game that they used to love and play. But that depends on how good it is. Like, I think AOM is going to need to knock it out of the park. It needs to be super fun day one. Players aren't going to want to wait, months to have customizable hotkeys and etc. like we had to do with AoE4. I don't expect AoE2 players to ever switch over to another RTS, so that's out of the question. And honestly, I do like the direction they're going with. They're trying to make the Age of Empires franchise as approachable as possible. They've added so many accessibility issues, accessibility nice elements into the game, such as the villager priority system. We don't know what the auto queue is going to look like in this game, but it's pretty much been confirmed from previous articles that there was going to be some element to auto queue. And they've talked a lot, even in this podcast, how they want it to be welcoming for somebody who's never played an Age of Empires game before. Really, that's a great thing. That should be their target audience. I had somebody ask me on my live stream the other day of like, will AOM be, an esport? And it got me thinking about like, what is esports? Like, what does that even mean? Like, the answer I've given to that is like, well, if you look at the sheer numbers we've actually had for Age of Empires 4 tournaments or AoE2 tournaments, whatever it is, the numbers are still really, really, really small in comparison to some of the other big titles out there. I mean, I went to TwitchCon a few years ago, and there was no stage of people competing in Age of Empires for good reason, because it just really, it doesn't hold a candle to some of what we would consider the big esports. It isn't an Overwatch or a Fortnite or whatever you want to call it. But if they want to grow this into being a super large game, they need to attract non-Age of Empires players right now, right? They need to grow the community tenfold. And I think the Xbox plus PC launch day one is going to help with that largely, because even as a content creator, I'm making YouTube videos, I'm streaming on Twitch, and now we got, instead of just the PC players checking those things out, I've got somebody who's playing on Xbox who just saw it come across their, their Xbox Game Pass for the first time, and then they're checking out my videos, and then maybe they tune into the next EGC tournament, and then, all that stuff compounds and grows. So that has some really major potential if it goes well. Right? I hold a certain amount of skepticism just because I've seen several of these launches over the last few years, and they've fumbled it each time of what I've seen. Now, this game looks beautiful. I want it to knock it out of the park. I love Age of Mythology. I'm excited about everything we're seeing, and I hope it is just over the moon. But this is just the realism of someone who's followed the franchise of what is going to happen. We talk about, is Age of Mythology going to kill AoE4? The real answer is no. Nothing is going to ever kill the Age of Empires 4. Age of Empires 4 is a great game that's going to be around forever. Will those tournaments fundings continue? Will those pro players gravitate now to the shiny new thing? Will they continue to play with AoE4? Will AOM start to carve off its own slice? I could also see, similar things that we've seen with AoE4, with AoE3, where, the launch goes on. There's people who dig in right away, and then there's people who are going to play and say, it's not for me, and then it kind of dips off very rapidly, and then they improve the game over time, and it gets what I would call the Age of Empires 4 arc, where they add in additional features, they add expansions later, then come in with things that you would expect to be part of the game. And I'm going to back this up just a little bit. Like, I think that for me, I'm tired of Age franchise games being launched that are just like missing things that are in other RTSs. Like, I don't know if you guys have played Beyond All Reason, but it has like every element that I want to have, to control in an RTS. And I'm just like, well, when are we going to get this? Is this going to be the one? Is this going to be the complete package? Is it going to feel great? And we're going to have to wait and see. I don't think it's going to necessarily kill Age of Empires 4, but we're going to have to watch and see, how's the reception? Where does the money go? Where do the players go? And all that, I guess we're going to find out this fall, coming this September, of course. Red Bull Wolo coming up. Will some of our Age of Empires 4 players be qualifying for AOM through that? Will be former pros from the AOM Extended Edition, or really the Voobly scene from the original? Will they be the players doing that? All of that I am super excited for, and I love everything Age of Empires. I've enjoyed every title. I think I might be a little bit unique in that fact, because I think there's a lot of people who they like some of the games, but like there's some like they've never played AoE3 or they've never played AoE2 or they've never played AoE4. Like I really play every single Age of Empires game, with the exception of Age of Empires 1. I just never really spent time, but that was just kind of, that came out before I played AoE2 and AOM. But I anticipate this will be a game I'm going to play. Of course, I'm going to be covering this extensively. So if you're hyped about Age of Mythology, let me know about it down in the comments. Let me know the god that you're planning on playing. I love the Egyptians. We see Isis flashing across the screen. Likely going to be a god I'm going to be digging into it deeply. And I will be making a lot of content for Age Mythology. So if you want to stay up to date, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you can take a second, hit me with the thumbs up. It really helps me out with all that I do, getting some traction with my Age of Empires content. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this little chat. And let me know your comments down below. Is Age Mythology going to knock AoE4 off the pedestal? We'll wait and see. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.